In this video, we're going to look at a walk cycle so that you can take a character and actually move them through space. Now, it's a lot more complicated than it actually initially looks, because you've actually got a lot of limbs not only moving, but changing direction, slowing down, speeding up. All sorts of things can be going on to give the illusion of walking or running. So I'm really going to simplify it, and I'm going to take all the technique out of it and just learn the process of making something move. So I want to take you through that. And then if you're interested, you can come back and learn about how to connect the limbs together and make them function in the way that you see here. So you can see that his knees, the angle is changing all the time. Okay. I'm going to remove all of that, and we're just going to do something really, really simple. What we're going to do is just break it down into really, really basic parts so that each leg is a symbol unit, and then we're going to learn to animate it. Now, what's wrong with this particular animation is it's too rigid. It's not following the walk cycle. So what I suggest you also do is go on the internet and have a look at animation walk cycles. Again, you'll see the leg changes shape, but we can follow the pattern so that you're putting forward one leg, and at the same time the other leg is going back. And then that will stop you making the sort of typical errors, just to actually look and see what a walk cycle looks like. So this walk cycle looks a little bit more convincing. And that's because the sort of timing is a bit more orientated towards how people genuinely walk and what position their arms are in and what position the legs are in. So I'm going to do a little bit of this. What would also help is if you had some kind of way of indicating which leg was nearer you. That gives a better illusion, and it could be a subtle change in colour. So you might want to build that in right from the start. What is really, really fantastic about doing this kind of animation is that you can start off with your stick character, figure out where the limbs are going, even do the animation, and then you can return to the symbol and build on that symbol and add additional content or drawing or colour or clothes, or it could be from a cut up photograph. So you could prepare an image in Photoshop or a drawing in Illustrator, make sure everything is cleanly cut out and that everything is on a separate layer, and then you can save it as a Photoshop or Illustrator document, and then you can bring it in to animate by using the import command. So here is the walk cycle I showed you a moment ago. It's a bit more of a run cycle, where he starts in one position, then one leg will journey forward while the other one goes back, and vice versa. And the arms will do the same, but in the opposite direction, the opposing sides. What would be really helpful is if you actually would name the layers as you go along, and then of course keep layers locked that you're not working on. So let's just run through this, how to make this cycle. So first of all, recognize whether you need to make the animation on the stage or whether it has to go into a separate symbol. Now I want my character to walk across the stage. Okay, therefore that part of it, the walking across, has to be animated separately on the stage. That means that this needs to be in a movie symbol. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to create a new symbol. And I'm just going to call this one text. Now I'm in symbol editing mode, and I can create all of the assets that I need. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw each body part and name the layer for each body part. so a fresh layer for every single one. So I've drawn all my body parts. The next thing that I need to do is put them into the starting position and think about, do I want to change the colour of anything here? So I'm just going to go right ahead. You'll see this crosshatch, that's the centre of your symbol. So we can arrange all of the body parts around that symbol. Now my little stick character is in his starting position, and that's around the little crosshatch in the middle. There are a few things that you can do to create a bit more illusion right from the start. The things near you could be a little bit bigger, something you could do. Those that are further away might be a slightly different colour. I've actually coloured these so that you can see the difference between the legs and the arms, and you can see which one is going into which position. But notice this one, which should be, so it should be on the left hand side of the character, is standing on the foot of the right side. So that means my hierarchy is wrong, and I need to move leg 1 up. So I've named all the layers. That lets me help really see where everything is. And the first thing I'm going to do is just to, as I say, orientate everything so it's in the correct starting position. Now I'm going to put on to each of these frames, so I'm just shift clicking, they're all going to get a motion tween. So I'm going to create a motion tween. Then it's going to make a symbol of all the individual parts. Okay. Now it just failed to do this one, so let me do that one separately. And then we've got motion tweens for the whole thing. Then I'm going to go to the first keyframe and look at each object, and I'm going to place the rotation point. So I'm going to take that rotation point and put it wherever I feel like the communication needs to be between the objects. Okay, so where the pivoting is going to happen. And I need my transform tool for that. So I'm going to pull this down here. The head might wobble a little bit. The body might wobble from a little bit down here, or we could leave it in the middle. I'm just going to leave it for the moment. This one is going to be from the shoulder up here, from the shoulder as well. And I've kind of given them hips, so I'm going to take the pivot point from about up here, and likewise up here as well. And that means just whenever I want to rotate, it's going to rotate around that pivot point. Okay. If you think about what happens when you actually walk now, when this leg goes forward, this arm goes forward, so not the one beside it. So you have opposing movement going in the same direction. And then you have also a point where your feet are almost together. So there's going to be a starting point that's something like this. Let's just change it a little teeny bit. It's going to be something like this. So I'm going to leave that as my start and end point. And then somewhere in the middle, all of these need to change. So for instance, let's just lock everything we're not working with. I'm going to look at this leg here. So I've got everything in the starting position, and then I've unlocked all the layers. And what I know is they'll probably roughly come back to the starting position at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a keyframe for each layer. So right at the end, I've added a keyframe here, and remember what a keyframe does. The golden rule is it will copy the previous keyframe. So now my animation will return to this position on this keyframe. And then I've just got to figure out what happens in the middle. So don't just do a line all down the middle, because then you'll just get a very, very rigid animation. So you might need to do some tweaking and slowing down in between, so it might need a couple of keyframes. But I'm just going to start and do it roughly. I'm going to put this leg in this position, and then so the blue leg and the blue arm should be in opposition at this point. Okay. And then the other leg in somewhere around the middle is going to come up here, and this should be in opposition at this point. So I may need to go back and address where those arms are at the start. They might require some movement. In order to play this, I need to use the device here. If I try and just test it, it's not on the stage, so it's not actually going to show me it. So in fact, I need to use the play button to test it. I can apply loop. Just make sure that this device here is showing you the whole timeline so that you're not cutting it short. And then I need to obviously go in and fix that. That's not quite working. So I'm going to hide the legs and look at the movement on each leg. So I've got it going, it's going to go behind, and then it needs to come forward at this point. So that's going to go behind and then forward. Let's just space these out a little bit. And then I'm going to do the opposite with the other leg, but then I'm also going to look at leg 2 and arm 2 at the same time, because they should be in opposition. So at this point, my arm 2, well, actually, let's look at the extremes. So at this point, my arm 2 is in the correct position, but as it comes forward, arm 2 needs to roll back. And then I'm going to do the same with the opposite side as well. Let's just play what that looks like. Okay, something like that. So I might need to come back and tweak it once we put it all together. So just by sort of coupling them up and looking at opposition, I've figured out the movement. The body is just really, maybe I just want to kind of rock it a little bit, you know, just, and maybe bob the head a little bit. So I'm going to add in a little bit of that animation. I've got my little basic cycle going. The final thing I wanted to show you is that you can go into any of the elements. If I double click, and I can make changes. So if I go to the properties panel, I can change the color, but I could also substitute it with a photographic image. If I prepare the limbs of a person in Photoshop and just make sure that they're all cut out and on a separate layer, saved as a Photoshop document, you can import a Photoshop document to the library. And then, so once I've double clicked to go into deeper into the symbol, you can look in the library and anything that you've imported will be there, and you can drag it in and replace it. Or you could just simply go in and redraw parts of your object. So if I decided I wanted to fatten up his legs, just using the brush tool, and then that's all going to be updated in the actual animation as well, making a bit of a bad job of this. To go back, I'm just going to double click to go back, and then if I wanted to fatten up this limb, I'm just going to double click to go in, and once again use the brush tool. And then what you'll find is that when you play it, everything that you've changed will be changed throughout the entire movie.